Hey, Ty Brady here with Brady Insurance Marketing in the Ty Brady Way, one of the nation's largest field marketing organizations that helps independent agents achieve a 6- and 7-figure income with the systems and strategies that I'm going to talk about with you today.
Today's topic of choice is being a transformational sales individual versus a transactional sales individual. And this has been weighing on me for a little bit, just because, how do you set yourself apart as a professional salesperson versus just being transactional? And I'll give you a few examples. And this could be not only in sales, but in coaching, in life, as a manager, as a leader in your organization. But all of these principles apply. So let's talk about a transactional individual here for a minute. And obviously, this is my opinion and my 44 years of world experience, right? So transactional would be something like this: is that you could go into a car dealership and you purchase a car, and the salesperson comes up to you and starts asking questions of usually they start out, what's your budget? Okay, what are you looking for? 2-wheel, rear-wheel drive, front wheel, minivan, whatever the case may be. And they start getting a little bit of information. And during a sales process, we usually call this fact finding. They're trying to get information so that they can fill a need. And, most of the time, unfortunately, when people purchase a car, it may come down to budget. So they start showing them cars within that budget. And then the transaction happens. That relationship usually goes bye-bye. And then the salesperson's off to the next gig, right? So that would be in a car dealership, a transaction like that. Another one that I'm familiar with is in the financial service industry. It's usually when somebody moves money from one area to another, there's a transaction or a fee paid to the licensed agent. And then typically that business or that money has to move again in order for that agent to get paid again. So all of those are transactional relationships, and they're all based traditionally out of money or a commission that the individual will receive. Now, let's talk about transformational agents and coaches and people in my life and what that is. So let's take that as an example. I use that car dealership, and there's nothing wrong with, I buy cars all the time, right? And that's great. There's people that need to sell those. There's nothing wrong with them, but I'm just trying to give some insight on how they could change their perspective and maybe win over a few more clients. So sometimes I refer to this also as solution-based selling, meaning you're talking to the consumer and you're finding out what their needs are. Oftentimes we just finished my busy season, we call it AEP in the insurance world. And I talked to agents and I said, what's their current coverage? And they typically say something like this: well, I don't know. What do they like about it? Well, I don't know. What do they not like about it? I don't know. Some very, very basic questions that they could ask to find the needs of what the consumer wants. Meaning, let's say I asked a question, you have XYZ coverage, and you're not happy with it because of network. Well, then I have an opportunity to show a product that's a solution-based selling, and I'm being transformational, meaning I'm serving them and meeting their needs. You think if you meet their needs and you find the solution to their problem, they're going to remember that, whether it's dental, whether it's vision, whatever the case may be, but it's being transformational and helping them with solutions instead of just being a transactional. Anybody can go in there and show them, hey, this plan costs you X, this plan has this benefit, but guess what? The next time the next person comes in, it's going to be the same thing. I have this car, it costs this, it meets your budget. Guess what? They go to the next dealership that meets their budget. Take the time to, one, get to know people, be that transformational individual, and trust me, it will benefit you and serve you for a long time. It's solution-based selling. It's serving them. It's finding needs. It's asking questions. All of you salespeople out there, the most basic thing that we do is fact find. Ask more questions. And then with all of that, be willing to listen. And guess what? I don't always have all the answers, and I have to go, you know what? That's a really good question. Let me get back with you. Let me see if there's a better option. There's times I've talked to people and said, listen, I don't have anything that meets your needs. And they're like, well, I really like you. And I said, I get that. And they want to pay me. I'm like, no, I don't get paid for my service or talking to you. But just because I can't help you today, guess what? If you have a friend, a family, or someone else I can help, just pass my card along. See how you change that whole perspective of being a transformational individual and helping people. I mean, I understand we got to make a living, right? And you still have to make it, but you don't have to do it at the expense of severing a relationship or selling somebody something just out of a commission. And you're never going to see that person again. But I'm all about building relationships. My relationships are important. The network people I network are important. I want them to be just as successful as I am. And I want to help them in whatever capacity that I can. The last one I want to go over is being a transformational coach. And as many of you know, if you've listened to this podcast, I do a lot of youth sport coaching. And little kids are very, very fun to coach, right? They usually don't have opinions. They usually will listen for the most part. But here's an example of what not to do and what I prefer to do. And I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. And, there has to be, sometimes you can't sit there and ask a kid, what do you think you did wrong? And, maybe that's not the right approach. But so let's take a transactional individual versus transformational as a coach and how this would come into play. So let's say you have a couple of kids on your team and, most of them know that if they don't perform, they're not going to be playing in the spot that they want to play in. And parents know this as well. And so they know that if they don't perform, the transaction portion is that if they don't perform, they're going to get benched, right? And unfortunately, as a coach, you're putting kids in the best position for you to win. I mean, that's the objective. And it teaches kids a lot. Trust me, it's so fun to watch. But if a kid does something wrong, and at least in my coaching experience, is what I like to do is bring a kid out for one play and say, hey, what happened? And if they can tell me I missed my block, or if they can tell me I didn't run the right way, or I did not run the play that was in the huddle, or I didn't hear what the play was. Well, you're like, okay, we'll get out there and fix it. That's very, very simple, right? They understood what they did wrong. They knew they did their own self-correction. It was me asking the question and being a transformational coach versus being a transactional coach and being that transactional coach where I pull them out and say, dude, you screwed up, have a seat. I mean, how are they going to learn? What are they going to take from that, right? I want them to have quick corrective action and make it swift. And I have to be the leader in doing that. Now, let's say a kid continues to do it. He realizes what he's doing wrong and continues to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. At that point, you've got to, as a coach, you're not doing what's best for the team. You've got to work at practice. You got to talk to him after the game. Say, listen, I really need you to do this. If you don't feel like you can do it, let's get you somewhere where you can perform. This last year when I was coaching, I ran 3 different quarterbacks. And for whatever reason, the quarterback that I wanted to start with, it was clicking, and then he got hurt. But you know what? He's a better runner. My kid that I wanted to try as a quarterback was a better receiver. So I moved kids all around. And my kid that ended up being my quarterback that took us to the championship, he ended up starting the last 3 games because my other 2 quarterbacks were out and I switched them around. But he's like, Coach, I don't want to run. At the very, very first of practice, I said, listen, I got to have you run. But guess what? He was afraid of getting hurt because the previous year he got tackled and he dislocated his hip. So I had to tell him, listen, I'm a loud coach. Trust me, I'm very loud. And I tell kids all the time, I said, I'm yelling so you can hear me, but I'm not yelling at you. And I'm going to bring you out. I'm going to talk you up and get you back out there because I want them to be those transformational kids that help other kids as well and pull together as a team. I don't want the transactional relationship where you do this, or you do this, or X. I mean, at work, you hit your sales quota or you're fired, right? That's a transactional relationship. And how on earth can somebody go to work and realize, okay, if I don't hit my numbers, I'm fired tomorrow? I mean, I think they know that if they don't hit their numbers, they're going to be fired. Why put salt on those wounds and sit there and be like, and put pressure on them when you're like, hey, listen, your sales numbers are down. What can I do to help you? Maybe there's something at home going on. Maybe that there's a change in the environment. The interest rates go up right now. Interest rates are crazy. Real estate agents are talking to me about coming to work for me because they don't know what to do. Loan officers, mortgage officers. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there, but how can you help them? Now, you can't do it for them.
There's a misconception out there. They have to be willing to go to work. They have to be willing to do that, but be that sounding board and help encouraging them to be that transformational individual. And trust me, they know they got bills to pay. They know that if they don't make this sell, that they're not going to feed their family. They know that their job is on the line. You don't need to sit there and put pressure on them. Uplift them, encourage them, support them. And in your own sales teams and in your sales environments, watch and see what happens when you be that transformational leader and bring the best out of them. I have agents that like working a certain way, and I encourage them to do other things, but they're not willing to do it, and that's okay. So for all of you out there, let's work on being a transformational individual in whatever capacity you're in, whether you're a leader, you're a coach, you're a sales professional, you're running a business, instead of being a transactional individual where that person comes to work, works his 40 hours, gets his paycheck, checks out, and goes home. Inspire them to do better, uplift them. You will thrive. They will thrive. You will build a bigger, deeper relationship with those folks, and your business will thrive because of that. Your sales will increase, and you will get referrals beyond end. As always, like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Ty Brady Way. As always, share, like, and subscribe. Go to Instagram at ty.r.brady. And as always, love hearing from you. And let me know what you want to learn on the show or what you'd like me to bring up on the show. Thanks.
You can find the Ty Brady Way on Instagram as well as Facebook. To stay connected with giveaways and Ty himself, go ahead and follow at ty.r.brady on Instagram as well as Facebook. This podcast was recorded, edited, and produced by Whitney Face Media Marketing. And the theme music is an excerpt from Hot Chicken of the Woods by Isaac Joel.